everyone. My name is Dominic Gross, and I serve as a doctoral intern in the Department of Student Affairs Assessment here at the University of Georgia. Thrilled that you all are joining us in our fundraising and student affairs session presented by Mr. Brad Bell and Mr. Tyler Daniels. You all will ask questions throughout the presentation using the chat function. However, we ask that you mute your speakers on your phone or on your computer to avoid interrupting the presentation. At this time, we will test the chat function. You can locate your chat box at the center top of your screen. Drop-down menu, please select the chat function. Send to option to everyone, name, and press send. Thank you. Now to introduce the speakers. Mr. Brad Bell serves as the Director of Private Gifts for the Division of Student Affairs, responsible for raising money to support the 13 divisions that report to the Vice President of Student Affairs. He works with the Vice President to build relationships with individuals, corporations, and foundations with the aim of improving the overall student experience at the University of Georgia. Mr. Daniels serves as the Assistant Director of Gifts for Student Affairs. In addition to providing administrative support for the director, Mr. Daniel plans, implements, and coordinates a variety of fundraising and promotional campaigns designed to increase student support for student affairs. I turn it over to Mr. Daniels and Mr. Brad Bell.
Well, everyone, we are glad to be with you all this afternoon. We're excited that we've had good support for this webinar, and Tyler and I are both very much looking forward to interacting with you guys today. We want to make it active. We don't want you guys bored. I was getting towards the end of the day, so as Dominique mentioned, feel free to answer questions or ask questions throughout. We'll be trying to monitor the chat pretty closely, but feel free also to unmute the phone and to chime in if you've got something specifically that you want to ask us as we go through the presentation. Of course, we'll leave time at the end for additional questions. We will have a couple of videos throughout. We also, Tyler will walk you all through our development website and give you a little bit of taste of maybe what's to come in the future for annual giving at Student Affairs through some different web interfaces as well. So hopefully it'll be a very beneficial presentation today, and we're going to record the webinar well. So if you all have anyone in your division or your department who is unable to make the presentation today, or as you add additional staff down the road, that will be a resource that we can use for development training for the division. So I will get started, and again, thank you all very much for joining us. Our presentation is entitled Fundraising in Student Affairs. Dominique mentioned, my name is Brad Bell, and I'm the Director of Private Gifts for the division. Have been working in this role since June of 12, and I'll allow him to introduce himself as well.
My name is Tyler Daniels. I'm the Assistant Director of Private Gifts. I've been with Student Affairs for about 3 years now, and I've been in this role since January of 2013, so just about to celebrate 1 year.
I assume that everyone knows, but we do have one additional member of our team for the development office for the division, which is Cynthia Turner, who's been working with us since the beginning of the fall. Vice President Wilson made a little space for her to help us out with some things. It's been a huge help with some of the administrative tasks and communication tasks that we have in making a constituent base, across 13 humongous departments for the division. So a nice little team here that we've been building. I wanted to start off with just a little video to the mood here a little bit about what do you think philanthropy means to you. So let's go into what some of these folks on video answered. as I get this pulled up. This is our first time using technology. If y'all have problems hearing that, let me know, please.
Mr. Bell, it's kind of hard to hear it.
Okay, I'm thinking that the sound is only coming from my computer, so let me see if I can increase volume on my computer a little bit.
What's the definition of philanthropy?
Is that better?
Let's see. I don't know the exact definition.
I have one. You mean?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know.
An artist?
My definition of philanthropy, I can't even say the word. Isn't that something to do with stamps?
Study of insects, isn't it?
I've never even heard of that.
I have to pick it. I gotta pick an answer.
What's your definition of philanthropy? Philanthropy means brotherly. Out of the Greek.
Well, that's where you're a rich guy and give away a lot of money.
Any good works that you do that help the community or society?
Philanthropy is having a generous heart.
I'm actually a bankruptcy lawyer. I've never seen anybody go into bankruptcy because they gave away too much money.
When I think of philanthropy, I think about giving.
So that was just a little clip to Bryce and introduce the topic to you guys today. And we'll go back to the PowerPoint now. Thank you for bearing with us as we transition. We were hoping that the sound would be able to be heard through computers, but I think it's only going to be able to be our computer into the speakerphone. But basically, that's the gist of what we do. We try to connect folks through their philanthropic passions and the things that they experienced or that their family members are experiencing at the University of Georgia, and for them to be able to fill those passions by supporting it with their financial means. So that's the name of the game, and that's what we're trying to do. The presentation outline today, we're going to talk about the fundraising landscape, and I'm going to hit on that. Tyler's going to go more into our development process, speak about specifics of the major gift process as well as the annual fund, and then I are both going to jointly talk about collaboration, and we're going to give you guys a checklist for success, so some real takeaways that you can implement into your day-to-day work that will help the division overall meet our fundraising goals as we move forward into your campaign that's on the horizon. Start there with the current fundraising landscape, and as I mentioned, as I'm sure that you all are aware after hearing President Moorhead in his few months on the job address constituencies over and over again about the importance of us raising private support and leaning on our friends and alumni to help fill the budget deficit basically we have. So this chart here you'll see talks about the different revenue streams that the university receives on a yearly basis, and it is a bit out of date. I think this was printed in the columns last year, and so it's leaning on data that at this point has changed a little bit, but I think you still get the point. Looking at it, we get about 30% of our revenue from the state of Georgia. Tuition and fees makes up another large percentage of revenue at 27%. And then you highlighted their gifts, grants, and research contracts at 21%. You'll see there at the bottom that says actually for fiscal year 2014, the state appropriation will fall to 28%. So even in a 1 or 2 year period, the state support has gone from around 30% down to 28%. And of course, we see this trend continuing in the future. So that's really the reason why President Moorhead, as well as other administrators at the university, the regents, GA Foundation members, are very focused on how Georgia can increase our private support so that we can keep the great level of programs we have and even improve so that we can continue to provide, even better education to the next generation of students coming through. So talk to you guys a little bit about our current endowment size and where we stand as a university compared to our aspirational institutions as well as though we would consider our peer institutions. I'll open up this question. Does anybody have an idea with a dollar amount how large UGA's endowment currently stands at? Don't know. Anybody got a guess? Well, I'm going to go to the next slide here in a second. I don't want to give away the rest of the answers. But UGA's current endowment is, we got a chat come in, $300 million. That is a good guess. That is a little bit short of where we currently stand. We got another guess of $500 million. You guys are getting a little bit closer. You're actually not giving us UGA Foundation fundraisers quite enough credit here. So the next slide here in a second, but the next question I had is which U.S. university has the largest endowment? How big is it? So the answer to that one, I see Ann has come with an answer to the previous question, and she's getting even closer. $1 billion answers on the largest endowment that it is Harvard. $1 billion is not the answer, though. It's a little bit higher than that. Does anybody else have an answer on what the size of the Harvard endowment? It's bigger than $1 billion, I'll say.
You can't use Google.
Yeah, Googling. Keith, no Googling. $7 billion from Ann. Keep on going up. Anybody else? Anybody got a more aggressive answer here? Next slide here in a second, and we'll show that answer. And then finally, in looking at our two of our biggest rivals, Georgia Tech and Florida, I know that on the football field, on the basketball court, in academia, in student affairs, we compare ourselves to Georgia Tech and Florida a good deal. So the question would be, as far as Georgia Tech goes, is UGA's endowment bigger, equal, or is UGA's nearly half the size of Georgia Tech's? And Teresa says half the size. Keith says half the size. Anybody else? Any other takers on that one? Anyone want to submit an answer? Hey, dogs, Jillian is feeling confident about the size of UGA endowment. Okay, what about Florida? I know we hate Florida almost even more than we hate Georgia Tech. What is Florida endowment bigger, equal, or nearly half the size? Or is UGA's nearly half the size of Florida's? Say that UGA's is bigger than Florida's. All right, well, I will go on to the next slide and reveal these answers. I wish that y'all's positive thinking held true here in this situation. As you see at the bottom of the slide, UGA's endowment as of a year ago stood at a little bit over $744 million. So from that aspect, we were doing a little bit better than most of y'all thought. And I think we got to give Ann possibly credit for getting the closest to that. But then if you look at the answer to the second question, Harvard University does have the largest endowment of a U.S. private or public institution. Their endowment is over $30 billion. So really pretty insane when you compare that to where a school like the University of Georgia is, and really compared to anybody. I mean, they're in kind of a league of their own. However, you can also see some of our aspirational institutions listed. You can see in the third column the ranking as far as the center endowment, with Harvard being number 1, Georgia being number 99 out of all public and private institutions. And then in the second column, the national rank, that is their corresponding U.S. World News and Report ranking for all public and private universities in the United States, major research universities. So the gist of this graph is, as you look down, and of course, to answer the other question, Georgia Tech has an endowment that is more than 2 times as large as ours, and Florida has an endowment that is almost 2 times as large as ours. So I know, as a fundraiser for the foundation, and Tyler can speak to this as well, we don't like being by Tech in Florida in anything, and so we have a lot of motivation going into this campaign to try to close that gap. Because really, when you look at it, and President Moorhead has come on this as well, we're 9th in endowment size, but we're 60th in our overall national ranking based on U.S. News and World Report. And when you look at public institutions, I think we're more like 20. So there's a pretty wide gap between being the 60th best university and only having the 99th largest. And as you look up the list, you see that those numbers are a lot closer and more correlated, where these top institutions also have endowments to match that. So I think that paints a pretty good picture of the fact that Georgia's done pretty well in the past on fewer private dollars than a lot of their peers. But if we really want to get up to where the University of Virginia's and University of North Carolina's are, then fundraising is going to have to really improve across campus, and you'll hear the term cultural philanthropy thrown about, and that's something that we're really trying to change. Is from the standpoint of our both our alumni outlook, our faculty staff outlook on the fact that really everyone is responsible across campus for giving back to Georgia and helping to raise those private dollars. So on to the next slide. I've got a quote here from President Moorhead, and this is from one of his initial addresses to the university community. But he says, during the 2013 UGA campaign, "If I'm a successful president, I will have led us in the largest capital campaign in the history of the University of Georgia, because with private support, we're not going to move to the next level." So that's a pretty definitive statement, I think. And I know that I'm not the only one that's noticed in his remarks how often he's brought up really the importance of fundraising. And so I think it is a new day, and I think that this president was put into the job, and given his marching orders, and one of those was that we were going to improve in these rankings, and that having the 9th largest in debt wasn't good enough for the type of university that we are. And I know that Vice President Wilson has those same directions from President Moorhead as it into our goals for the division moving forward. One of the things in campaign planning that we're looking at right now is how can we look at our 2020 University of Georgia strategic plan, and then our 2020 Student Affairs strategic plan, and come with initiatives for a fundraising campaign that will help us raise private support that will fulfill these directives. And so fundraising plays a large role, I believe, in our Student Affairs strategic plan. And as you see, directive number 3 here, directly from the plan, says that it will be our goal to generate additional funds available for student affairs programs and services through fundraising, development, and revenue generation. So that's what Turner and I have been focused on over the last year, and that's really what we've been going back to as we look to set our course over the university's next 8-year campaign. Talk a little bit about what we've done so far with the campaign, and I know that you've heard bits and pieces probably. The reason that you really haven't heard a whole lot centrally about our next campaign is that we're in the silent phase right now. So as far as campaign planning goes across the country, education institutions, rule of thumb is that you kind of plan and you raise money through the silent phase, and you get about 50% of your total goal. However long that takes, you really don't go live with your initial goals and really your mass appeal to your greater alumni base until you have roughly 50% of the money raised. The number that folks have been throwing out so far for the campaign is roughly $1 billion, and I know that sounds like a lot, but when you look at $1 billion over 8 years, and you look at the fact that last year the UGA Foundation raised over $100 million, I think fiscal year 13, we raised $117 million. So really, for us to raise $1 billion over an 8-year period, the university would have to average about $121 million a year. And I think we talk about strategies to shift the culture of philanthropy. I think we're only getting better at fundraising as we get more folks involved and get more folks across the university to buy in. And so really I think it's a very achievable goal and really a goal that I think that we should look to surpass. So each unit will be responsible for a slice of that $1 billion pie. That has not been settled yet, but it is looking like the student affairs will, in all likelihood, be responsible for a goal and a selection of the pie that will be somewhere between $8 and $10 million over the next 8 years. So again, based on our prior year fundraising, and Tyler will talk a little bit more about what we've done over the last couple of years, I think that's very doable. And so going into kind of what we're doing to look to build the culture of philanthropy within student affairs and within our alumni base, one of the things that we want to do is create a student affairs advisory board. And so the SALT team and the directors of the different units will be hearing more about that as we move forward. And we want to have a good mix of people that are contributing right now, people that we could see as future contributors to the student affairs bottom line as far as financial gifts. So you have those that are already committed, but then also the people that are committed, that with the connections and with some interests that align with student affairs. Hopefully you can move those folks into major gift status as far as campaign gifts. Also looking at creating a student affairs culture of philanthropy committee, and that would be made up of across the division that have shown an interest and shown a level of support for the development efforts of the division. Really, the gist there, this is Vice President Wilson's one of his initiatives, and the gist is to get the thing of the division and giving of private gifts to be seen not just as a function of our office with myself, Tyler, and Cynthia, but really something that the entire division takes ownership of and has a say in as well. Faculty staff campaign, that's going to be something that we continue to work on and to get our levels of faculty and staff support increase and to show really that those dollars do make a difference, because I know a lot of times we think if we can't make a major gift that it's not gonna move the needle at all, but really that's not true. And then student giving, that's going to be a big priority for us because we have access to the entire student body. We have a audience across all schools and colleges with our students. It's going to be our goal, campaign effort, to change the culture based. A lot of universities across the country really have a job of driving home that message to students that they would experience what they have at UGA because those for them gave back to the university. And so we really want to shift the culture as far as it's feeling like, when they graduate, that it is their responsibility to get to those that have supported them. So we want to promote, measure, and foster a commitment in students to support their favorite student affairs area while they're in Athens and at an increasing level after graduation. So these are steps that we plan to take within the next year and really 8 years to help improve our culture of philanthropy. Before the next slide, I'll answer a question that Therese posed. Asked if the endowment number encompasses all fundraising at the university across schools and colleges, or just money given to central fund and fund. And the answer to that would be that it is money raised across the entire university, including athletic donations, which make up a surprisingly large percentage of that $117 million, or maybe not surprisingly. But yes, that is complete fundraising numbers. So we are moving along here, and yes, feel free to ask your questions as they come up. I'm turning it over to Tyler. I'm sure you guys are tired of listening to me for the time being, and so Tyler is going to talk a little bit about our student affairs development process.
Right, yeah, let's talk about the process. So we like to say that development in student affairs is both donor-centric and mission-driven. and really true of the university as a whole as well. So that looked like, well, first of all, we want to, when we a prospect donor, we want to drill down and figure out what are they passionate about, whether they're an alum or just a friend of a prospect. What are they passionate about? Everyone has a passion, and then we want to take that passion and we want to turn that into some sort of philanthropic action. And when that happens, we have to fulfill a need at the university. So that's where the mission-driven part of it comes in. Take a passion, we connect to some initiative, some program within student affairs, and then we turn that into philanthropic action, and it further drives our mission. It further enhances the learning environment, which is the mission of student affairs. That's ultimately really an overview of what we're trying to do here in development. We have a good example here with Bill. He's someone who is a donor, is extremely passionate about veterans, and also an alum of UGA, and is chairing one of our campaign committees for the Student Veteran Resource Center. Just a fantastic example of what this looks like. So we're going to show this video for you.
There's no yet, so don't worry if you're not hearing anything.
In 1962, agreed on a dare with Tim Flournoy to LC program for the United States Marine Corps. And after a victory lap, I went to Quantico, Virginia as a American lieutenant, and was active duty from then. And after I got out of infantry school, they were kind enough to give me a free airline ticket to Oklahoma, and then from there to Vietnam. I was assigned to the 3rd Marine Division, and there I was in Da Nang for about 5 months, and then for my 13 and a half months I was up in the DMZ. They say they're not afraid, or either they don't understand that they are afraid, and then when they get back. And you know, a lot of people that happens to, but you're so afraid for such a long time. And I was there. I was susceptible to some kind of something to kill me. Rockets, mortars. Then is not, I don't think it's the best way to do it. The problem is, who do you talk to? Who do you talk to? Did you remember when I could sit there and tell you some of the horrific things? No. The veterans will understand it. That's why this resource is so important, because it'll give them a place to come that they talk to somebody who will understand they have experienced. They does. It's now our turn to serve them back. I mean that. Out here. You can have it. Zone called a baby killer. His back's turned on me. I had a lot of flashbacks. I was having nightmares. Got to the point I couldn't sleep. I wouldn't sleep. So I took to the bottle. And in order to try to get myself on that fear of sleep and nightmares, I drank an awful lot of vodka every night. I realized it was a pathway to disaster. I got help. I went to Ben Columbus and I said, I have time. he encouraged me to get involved with the group in Columbus at the Bradley Center, which I did. And it saved my life. It's to be a place that gives these young people a belonging. They don't have that necessarily today. That was expressed to me specifically by two veterans, and the term they used was fish out of water. So the structure is that it's pointed nicely, that it has kind of a military feel to it, but it's a place of safety. It's a place of being able to reunite or to meet or to be with other people that have similar experiences and similar problems and be able to work them out. I go to the wall and by dates, and I always go look up friends, J.J. Carroll, Cox, Billy Flayhive. They never grew old. They never grew old. What they could have done for this country had they lived. If you look at the wall, seeing names, and you see your own reflection. We need to raise money, but we raise awareness. It's nice to come up to somebody and pat them on the back and say, "Gosh, thank you for your service. Let's get the next step. Service. What can I do for you? What can I do for you?"
An example of something that Tyler put together that we think reveals the story of an alum who we're lucky enough to connect with, who passionate about one of our programs, and I know that those folks exist in all of your areas, and so really one of the things that you guys can do is help connect us to the Bill Huffs for your area. Bill hosted a fundraising dinner for us down in Columbus with 7 of the wealthiest families in Columbus who are all passionate about veteran services, and even though he gave a more modest gift, the compound fact of network of influence is really going to go a long way for us.
Yes, what a fantastic example of that donor-centric, 4P that is driving the mission and this helping student veterans who come back here and need resources like he was talking about, and we have a way to provide that because of the passion that's there in Buff and others. And so, in this slide, you really see a model of what this looks like, a sort of a 30,000-foot view of what this process is. Just to walk you through it real quick. First, you have a student experience. Students here at GA, they're involved with the Center for Leadership and Service, or maybe they're receiving benefits from the Disability Resource Center. They graduate and become successful, of course, because they're a dog. And then because of that success, they feel gratitude. They're thankful for that success. So it's our job then to find those people who are grateful, who do have the capacity to give, figure out what they're passionate about, and again, turn that into that philanthropic action. And as you can see, this becomes a cyclical process. As you give back, you're then fueling someone else's student experience, the next generation, which then becomes successful, then experience gratitude, and so on and so forth. So that's just an overview of the process. Now a little bit deeper, and let's look at the major gifts process. So the first thing that we want to do is identify and qualify prospects. We want to find those people who are passionate, find those people who do have capacity, and we make sure that they do. Then we want to start to build that relationship in the cultivation stage. We want to build a certain amount of trust. We want to provide information on what our programs can provide for students. We want to talk about their experience while they were a student. And once we build a degree of trust, we then move on to that solicit stage, and that's when we're actually making the ask. Usually we want this to be a face-to-face We want, Brad to go visit them. He may bring the VP with him. He may bring the dean with him, or a director. From time, this may just be through email or something that's sent in the mail, but usually we want this to be a personal thing. And if we do secure that gift, we want to move on to the stewardship stage, is where we thank them. Thank them for their gifts. We maybe have clear and consistent communication with them to let them know what their gift is doing, how it's improving students' lives and our programs. If we do that well, it may even lead to another gift, or it may lead to them introducing us to another prospect so that we can continue to raise these dollars. So what kind of gifts can people give? It's a simple question, but a good one. And there's three main gifts you can give to student affairs. One is going to be a programmatic endowment. We have a lot of programs in student affairs. This really what makes up student affairs programs. The minimum for an endowment, which we mentioned earlier, which just to go over endowment is really quickly, a larger gift, $100,000 minimum, which may be one person giving that gift, and maybe multiple people who meet that minimum, giving smaller, medium-sized gifts, and it's an investment. And we take that principal, we interest off of that, and that interest goes to fund our programs, and we keep the principal. We leave it alone, let it continue to build interest. That way that we are funding our programs in perpetuity. There's always going to be money to fund those programs. So that's certainly, want to grow our endowment. That's going to be really beneficial for student affairs in the future. The way is through scholarships, and the minimum there is $25,000, a little bit easier to meet that minimum. And that's more of an individual-based gift. You're going to be helping a student buy books, go on some sort of trip, pay for their travel, or maybe it's a gift to a student in Disability Resource Center who needs some sort of specific operation to help them through school. So you certainly give more than $25,000 and fund multiple scholarships, but certainly more of an individual-based gift. And then finally, we have the annual fund. I want to pose a question to you really quickly. Are there any programs, initiatives that you've wanted to fund, you just haven't been able to because it's just not in the budget? Staters aren't able to fund it. If you can think of anything, which I hope you can, just type it up real quick in the chat box. If you can't think of anything, I encourage you to think of it because, like we said earlier, we're all fundraisers. You'll hear VP Wilson say that as well. We're all in the fundraising business, so we need to start thinking about what programs do we need to fund. So it's something that you know that will improve students' lives, but you just haven't had in the budget. Just real quick.
An example real quick is, as I'm sure everyone on the line is thinking very about this, but for instance, with housing, we've done some work to build the Jim Day Scholarship up to the $25,000 endowment minimum for scholarships. And we're going to get there this year, and so that's one of the things we talked about with Keith and with Jerry and housing is that possibly through annual fund ask and through ASSA gifts for $100, $250, people can continue to fund the Jim Day Scholarship as an annual fund. Just one example.
Looks like you coming in here. Ann McDonald says professional development programs. Says the DRC would like to fund a transition program for students with disabilities starting college. Teresa says potentially some veteran support and activities. These are all great things. And the annual fund is that it really is an opportunity to start funding these types of programs, to start saying yes to these type of programs, because usually it's going to be dollars going into your discretionary account, so you can use it at your discretion. It's dollars on top of your state funds. It does two very important things. One, it gives an opportunity for those folks, those alumni, those friends who are passionate about student affairs, but may have the capacity to give at the major gift level, it gives them an opportunity to contribute and make a difference. And the second thing it does is it allows us to identify those potential major donors. If we find somebody, we look back at our annual fund reports, see someone who's given $1,000 for the past 5 years, there may be potential there for a major gift. So it's certainly a great door for that as well. Some of you are wondering, how much money do we raise in student affairs? This is an 8-year overview of our totals. If you look at this table here, you can see in FY06 and FY12, it seems that we raised significantly more in those years, and those were mainly due to 1, 2, 3 donors who gave a major gift that really makes a difference in those total numbers. So you can see that just finding that one donor, this 2 donors, the diamond in the rough, can make a huge difference in our totals, which again is why it's so important that this is a collaborative effort, because it really expands our network and the potential to raise more money. So on average over all these years, we're raising a little over $1 million, but if you adjust and take out those outliers, it's around $642,000. So now I'm going to get on over to Brad, and he's going to talk a little bit about how you can be involved in this.
Inspiration is the name of the game, and that's the biggest lesson we take away when we see major gift success, is that it's not the development officer solely, it's not the vice president solely, it's not the president of the university solely, but it's teams of folks working together to collaborate, and for the donor really to have multiple touches. You guys are the experts of your different areas. We might lend a little bit of fundraising expertise or strategy expertise, but really you're the ones who know, who are really hands on the prospects, and really know where the need is, and you're the one that sets the priorities. So I've come up with a checklist of steps you guys can take back and implement it into your daily routine that we would like for you to, and I know a lot of you are already doing this, but this really, more folks that we can get involved across the division that are thinking in the back of their mind as they go about their daily work about fundraising and looking at interactions with alumni, parents, students as through a fundraising tent, I guess you might say, more success that we're going to have. And so I think you're starting to see that more. But the first thing on the checklist is just to communicate with us, with the development staff. Keep us in the loop on opportunities with potential donors. If you find a potential donor, email us so that we can check our alumni database to see if there's clearance issues to another school or college. We have a clearance system in place so that you don't have student affairs and the business school, or student affairs and the law school asking a donor for a gift at the same time. So that is important, and we want people across campus to respect the relationships that we've built, and so we try to do a good job of respecting relationships that other folks across campus have built. You call us for additional research on prospects. Finally, keep good student records. That's something that we're really going to harp on move forward. Without those good student records, we don't know who our annual fund prospects are. If we're trying to send out an email blast to the top housing or D or health center or campus development prospects or annual fund prospects, if we don't have record that they participate in your area, then we don't know. We have their contact info, but we don't know that they have affinity for our programs. So it's important we communicate as far as what students on basis are involved in our programs. So looking at the ideal prospect, as Tyler mentioned, I won't spend a whole lot of time on it. It's a 2-part equation. Not only do they have to have affinity for our different programs to be a major gift prospect, but they also have to have the capacity. So you need both of these things coming together really to really land that major gift. So, a lot of times you all might not know what the capacity is for an individual, but a lot of times you will know the affinity, and there are things that you can do to look, in lines you can look for to see if they have the capacity. I know a lot of times at a grassroots level we've started home users online when we have an address to see, kind of what size home a person lives in. Sometimes you'll see public records as far as salary that we search. You can look at previous giving history, and a lot of times that'll give you an idea of the capacity that the person has to make a major gift. So the thing on the checklist is work with department staff to establish priorities. So whether you're a director or you work underneath the director in your department, you guys are the ones that set the priorities for our fundraising initiatives. The vice president sets our priorities for fundraising initiatives. It's not me and Tyler. And so you have to be really clear about what's important and really clear helping us paint the picture for the alum because they want to see these programs making a tangible difference in students' lives. And so it's you guys that set those priorities and you that help us paint that picture. The set deadlines and follow through. We have such a large division with so many different departments, and we do have a pretty modest size funding staff. And so really, a lot of times, we're not able to spread our efforts into every different direction. So to help us be as efficient as possible, when we set deadlines, when we mutually set deadlines, both ends have to follow through and meet the deadline that's been set, really in order to be as efficient as possible so that we can touch as many different departments at once. And so that's really important as far as our overall fundraising success. Number 4, build strong relationships with students, parents, and alumni. Look for opportunities to get them on campus so they can experience the magic that Vice President Wilson always talks about. Help the development staff steward and thank current donors. That's an important role that you all can play. And really, when I look at our major gift donors across the division, they all have significant relationships with the directors, whether it's Fontaine with Dr. Chin or whether it's Darren and Catherine Nash and their relationship with TW. It's not just the development officer. I know that we're the fundraisers and see that for what it is. And so they want the relationship with the people that really are hands on the pulse of the area that they're supporting. The thing is I would encourage you all to have a top 3 prospect list. We have our own prospect list division-wide, but we would ask that as you go about work and as you interact with alumni and parents and friends of the university, that you keep a physical list of the top 3 people that you want to work towards a major gift. They have the affinity, they have the capacity, that you're constantly updating the list. So maybe you're starting the road of talking about a gift or even just kind of inquiring on their interest of supporting, and you determine that it's not going anywhere. Well, you throw that person off the list, and maybe we work together to find somebody else. But have all the directors and folks with a development tie doing that sort of thing, then really the pipeline opens up a whole lot larger. So just things that we think that you guys can do if you said to us, we want to make a difference as far as the division's fundraising. Just examples of our collaboration. Had a great example last month with the Tate 30th anniversary celebration. Jan Barnum emailed me looking for a speaker, of alumni to speak, who had been a former student leader at that event, at the anniversary event. And so we went through a list of prospects, realized that we actually had somebody that fit that bill that had already made a gift to student affairs in the past. So we get the individual on campus. Jan helps to build a really itinerary where he goes and visits the tea house, which was his old fraternity. He tours the Tate Center and sees the Greek Life Suite. He sees the different student leadership groups, the Center for Student Organizations. Really a great day, and though we haven't closed the gift yet, I'm heading back up to Washington D.C. Because at the end of the day, he said, you guys just need to ask me for what you want, for what I can do to make a difference at the university. This is what I'm passionate about, and it turns out it's not only Greek life, but it's also student leaders on campus through the Tate Center. So we're going to make a joint ask to him and expect to have good success. And then just we're a little short on time. Our work with the DRC and with Sarah and Karen and Molly has been a great example of collaboration as well, where they've really taken the bull by the horns as far as fundraising goes. But there's a lot of great communication going on back and forth, and really, the results speak for themselves as far as the success that the DRC's had.
Yeah, let's go back to the annual fund, because that's a way that you can really be involved with fundraising and student affairs. So an annual fund gift is a gift that's going to be really any gift under $10,000. We do have different levels for the annual fund. $250 level is a Dean Tate Giving Society. Student Affairs Fellows is $1,000. And the Vice President's Circle is $5,000 or more to the VP's discretionary fund. So we certainly have levels and encourage folks to give that level, but it's really any gift under $10,000. Our calendar for that basically looks like we reach out to non-donors, those who have never given a gift to Student Affairs before. We reach out to them in the fall, and then we reach out to what we call live months and side months in the spring. So those live months stands for gave last year, but unfortunately not this year. Side months is some year, but unfortunately not this year. So maybe you gave a gift 3 years ago. We reach out to you again, encourage you to renew your gift to Student Affairs, and maybe even increase it. So that's just a general calendar of what that looks like. How can you be involved in that? Well, real quick, let me just ask a question. Real quick. Do you think that donors or prospect donors who are given at the $250 level, the $1,000 level, or $50 level, what do you think they expect from us as fundraisers and directors to communicate to them? What do you think they need from us to help them make the decision to give that gift? Real quick, a few comments. Thank you. Yep, that's a good example of stewardship. We want to make sure that people know we're getting those gifts. Exactly. Where it's going, what's funding. We want to update them. Basically, want to keep that communication, and that really is our goal with the annual fund. And one way that you can help us in that, well, there's really two ways. First, in this, but worth mentioning again, we want to keep good student records. We need to know who we're going to reach out to. We got to be able to identify them. I'll be reaching out to units and departments on a semester basis to get those student records from you so that we can put those in our database. But secondly, when we are working together to reach out to folks through email or through direct mail to talk about your department or unit, we want to be specific in our and what's being funded, what it's going to, and how it's improving students' lives. And our thank you and our follow-up and keeping that communication open, we want to make sure they see how their gift has impacted student affairs in their programs. And yes, making giving easy, I think that's a huge thing too. That's why we're really trying to step up our digital giving. One thing I don't really have a whole lot of time to tell on, but you'll see crowdfunding on the page. We're trying to work towards more of a digital giving that's equipped to, first of all, enable you to be a fundraiser in the way that you submit. For example, some of the things that were mentioned earlier. I know that Sarah said we have some sort of transition program for students with disabilities. Well, you can put that campaign, that proposal together, upload to our site, and then we have the availability for someone to give digitally, and all of a sudden you're taking ownership of that fundraising. And we don't just have one annual gift officer in Memorial Hall, but we have dozens of annual gift officers across the division submitting their initiatives. So
that would be similar to some of the sites like Indiegogo and Kickstarter that you've seen have such great success. So that's something that Tyler's really been working on.
Yeah, and that's something that's hopefully in the future. And really, what this is all is telling the story of student affairs. You've heard VP Wilson say that. We want to be able to tell our story and tell it well. And so that's what fundraising is all about. Real quick, we wanted to show you a platform that we're using currently to tell the story of student affairs. This is sort of homegrown, I guess you could say homegrown crowdfunding. So we have a video that's here in the site. We have our goals that we're trying to meet. We have our videos and our explanation of the campaign. You can go to the homepage real quick. And the homepage, you can see this is just a platform for you to be able to tell the story about your programs, about how gifts are impacting students. Then we use this in our annual fund initiatives, whether we send out an email blast or some sort of direct mail piece. We're trying to bring them back to this platform and make it as easy as possible for them to make a gift to these initiatives. So it's just a quick overview of that. And especially if you have anything that you think would be interesting, newsworthy, just give me a call, shoot us an email. We'd love to feature it here on this platform. That is our presentation. At this time, we want to allow some time for questions. So if you have any questions, whether you want to type in the chat box or unmute your phone and just ask over speakerphone, we encourage you to do that now.
Questions specifically about the campaign or the campaign planning process, through the annual fund, our Student Affairs Development Advisory Board. There's a lot going on, and I know that was a lot of information that we threw at y'all, but if anyone has a question, we'd be glad to answer.
This is Ann. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I have a question. I just wonder, is there ever a circumstance where you would want other people to ask for money, ask someone for money, or is that something that's you and people in your office?
Well, that's a good question. I would say that I think as far as an annual fund type gift, that if you feel comfortable, you're more than welcome to solicit a gift to your area, the annual fund type of level. Now, if we're talking about a major gift solicitation, which technically a major gift is anything over $10,000, broke up over a 5-year commitment, we would need clearance and make sure that person isn't already being asked by somebody else before we do that. But if you're talking about $250 or $500 to the annual fund, then yeah, I think it's fine for the division to be making those asks. And we'd be glad to help coach you through it too. A lot of times you all are the best people to make the ask because you already have the relationship. But we're here as we can do it a number of ways. We can make the ask, or we can coach you along in making the ask, or you can just make the ask yourself if it's an annual fund gift, and then kind of get a scoop on the back end.
Thank you.
Well, we will have saved on the Student Affairs website, and I hope that you will encourage others to take a listen to our presentation. I think you will really be seeing a lot of exciting things across the Division of Student Affairs. As far as fundraising goes, Vice President Wilson has it one of his top priorities, and so we're really excited about some of these initiatives that we have coming up, and our ability really to increase those fundraising numbers and kind of be seen as a leader for student affairs development across the country, because really it's a pretty new phenomenon at universities as far as raising money specifically for student affairs, and we're positioned well compared to our aspirational institutions. Jill says that she has a question. Go ahead, Jillian, if you'd like to type it. She's other feedback from alumni or potential donors, and so I guess if I'm understanding the question correctly, of course, in our major giving interactions, I gather feedback, by asking pertinent questions to the alumni about their thoughts on a potential program or where their passions lie. But I'll let Tyler answer more from an annual fund perspective, because I think that might be more where the question's coming from.
Well, as far as feedback goes, we try to include obvious contact information in any sort of solicitation that we give, or any sort of thank you that we give, and we certainly want to hear back from donors. Let's see. So we certainly want to make sure that we are stewarding these folks well, and we're constantly updating what that process looks like. I think essentially there's some more efforts out there to try to gather feedback on things like that, but I'm hoping with some of our future digital giving options that there's going to be more options for interaction, if you will, so comments and feedback and options just to provide more information on what they want to see and what they want to fund. It also will be more donor-centric in the fact that they're searching for the things that they're passionate about on the individual level. So I'm not sure if that answers your question perfectly, but I would say, we get feedback often, and even the gifts that we get in. So especially when people are getting multiple gifts because they like what they see as far as how we're impacting students here.
Teresa, did you have a question as well?
I've been talking about contacting donors or build relationships with alumni donors. If you, and I don't want to take us over time or take us beyond the scope of the presentation, but I wonder if you could talk about building relationships and seeking donations from people who are not alumni. I'm thinking more like corporate sources.
And, those are all kind of interchangeable, and a lot of times when I say alumni, I also try to say friends as well. So I view a friend as a foundation who has an interest in supporting UGA, a corporation, or, just a wealthy individual who, doesn't tie to Georgia, but maybe just lives in the state and wants to see the flagship prosper and see students' lives change. So that all has to be part of the scope of what we're doing as well. And a lot of times when we find foundations and corporations that where their giving aligns with the mission of what we're doing, then those are opportunities where we need to build those relationships. And of course, we need to make sure in those situations with corporations and foundations that someone else on campus isn't already working with that group. But if they're not, then we can put a strategy together for how we get our message to the decision makers within that corporation, foundation, or into the university, and you need to take more advantage of those opportunities. I found that a lot of times you really have to be careful with corporations and foundations that that your mission aligns with what they want to fund, because a lot of steps involved with submitting a grant proposal for those sort of things, and a lot of times the dollars aren't as big as what you might see from a wealthy individual. Sometimes they are, but a lot of these smaller foundations, the grants might be smaller, and so it helps a lot of time to have a relationship with somebody on the inside already, I think, before you're making that ask. But certainly we need to do a better job of engaging corporations. I think one of the things we can do is we can give access to our students. I know one of the proposals we put forward recently for Greek Life involved a company that had an interest in hiring our students, and so in order for them to have direct contact, a lot of times we need to give that contact to organizations that are supporting us, and so I think that's a good point of leverage that we have. Is that your question, Teresa?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bell and Mr. Daniels, for delivering the second session of our fall webinar series. We are appreciative of your time and grateful for your willingness to share your expertise with the Division of Student Affairs. Also, I would like to say thank you to everyone who participated with us today. I'm sending all participants a short survey that will take you just 3 minutes to complete. We want to know your experience and how it was today, so we ask that you please provide us feedback. Thanks again for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you all next time.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.